Let's finish our review from yesterday for our final. We're going to go back again to Unit 1. This time we're going to run through the odds. We've got some vocabulary going on here. So recall that a variable is a letter typically, but basically a symbol that will take the place of a number. So we can dial that one down to there. Like terms, we talked about this, some of us talked about this yesterday, like terms are identical variable parts. So that's the important thing, that the variable parts have to be the same. It looks like I see that. So it's like the same letter to the same power. A term is just something that falls between an addition and subtraction sign. So it's numbers and letters. This should say separated by addition or subtraction. That's a term. Coefficient. Coefficient is that number in front of a variable. So like in 4x, 4 is the coefficient. And then the constant is that number that just stands alone. So if I had something like 4x plus 7, my constant would be positive 7. So that's our vocabulary, the basic vocabulary review. When we, going back to Unit 1, we talked about the difference between an expression and an equation, and really the main difference between an expression and an equation is an equation has an equal sign. That's about it, really. An expression doesn't. It's terms separated by addition or subtraction, but no equal sign in the problem. So the main difference is an equation has an equal sign. All right. The other thing we worked on was using our calculators. And again, remember, it's okay to use a calculator, and depending on the calculator that you have, how you enter your fractions may change. On my calculator, I have an ABC button. If you did the calculator that we used, that I suggested at the beginning of class, you find that in a different spot. In fact, and I don't have that one on my new phone, I didn't download it, but if you have questions about how to use it, just let me know. But when we're entering these, don't be afraid to use your calculator again, and you can enter it exactly as you see it. So I'll enter 1, then I'll hit my fraction key. Oops, I got to turn it on apparently. 1, fraction key, 1/4. So that's 1 1/4. That's how mine shows up on mine. The newer your calculator, or the better one you have, the better it's going to show up. The more like this it's going to look. Plus parenthesis, because there's a parenthesis in that problem, 1 1/6 minus 2/5. I'll end that parenthesis again because it's there, times 2 1/4. I'll get my answer. I'll try and get my answer. Okay, so 157 over 320 is my answer. Now, oftentimes, the answer on multiple choice are going to be written in improper form. This one it doesn't matter for, but let's say I got 5 2/3 as my answer. On your calculator, there should be a key. If I enter 5, oops, let me go back, 5 2/3, that's going to show up as 5 whole number. That's a unit symbol. 2/3 is the fraction next to it. There's a key on your calculator that allows you to change it. If you're using the calculator that I suggested, then you just hover over the answer key, or hover over the where that answer showed up, and it'll give you a whole list of equivalent variations. But for this calculator, I have to do second ABC, then it's going to convert from whole number fraction to improper fraction, just a number over another number, and hit enter, and so that would be 17/3. So keep in mind, if the answer that you get doesn't show up, then maybe you have to change it into an improper form. So use your calculator to help you out with that. Moving right along, more simplifying. Again, when I'm doing the order of operations, 4 and 8 15ths minus, I would do x over x. Well, this one's kind of a nice one because anything over itself is going to be 1 squared, so I don't really have to go any further than that. But if I had to plug it in my calculator, I would just put 5 5/9 over 5 5/9 and then get that answer and square it. Parentheses sometimes get a little tricky, so kind of be careful with stuff like that. But anytime I can take some time, oops, I said this is 15th, save myself some work, I do some simplifying on my own. 4 8/15 minus 1 squared, got a squared key on mine, look for that on yours, equals 3 8/15, that's what I was talking about before, so I'll do second, convert it into the improper fraction, and 53/15 is my answer. So 53/15. Again, your test is going to be multiple choice, and typically the answers are going to be in improper form. Moving on, don't worry about fractions when you have variables involved. This is just going to be 2/3 plus 9/8 n, and then it'll be plus -5 plus 7/3. So I'm going to have to do both of those parts, so -5 and 7/3, that was the second part, plus between them. So again, I'll do my calculator, 2/3 plus 9/8 gives me 1 19/24, so I'll convert it to improper. So at 43/24, 43/24 n plus, then I'll do the next part, -5 plus 7/3, -5 plus 7/3, -2 2/3. Again, I'm going to change that to improper. So -8/3, so plus -8/3. So I'd write that as 43/24 n minus 8/3 for my final answer. The multiple choice will not give a double sign like that, so it'll always rewrite it in that other form. So watch out for stuff like that. Likewise, when I'm distributing, not a big deal. I distribute here, so I'm going to do -15/8 times -3/2, 2 13/16. Again, I'll convert. So I have 45/16 x plus, now I have to do that again, -15/8, this time times 5, convert it, oops, didn't mean to do that, go back here, okay, -75/8, so plus -75/8, again, when I rewrite this, it's 45/16 x minus 75/8. That will be probably how the problem writes it. Again, multiple choice. Here I have a double distribute. Distribute the first, -2 minus 18p. Distribute the second, plus 80 plus 64p. And then combine like terms. -2 plus 80 would be 78. -18p plus 64 would be plus, what's that, 54, so 46, it looks like 46p, or this could be 46p plus 78. I just want to double check that, so I'm not ashamed to use this. -18 plus 64 equals, oops, I gotta do it again, -18 plus 64, just want to double check my math, 46, yeah, that's what I thought it was, so 46. So again, either one of these, sometimes the multiple choice will list the constant first, other times it'll list the variable term first. It just depends on the situation. All right, moving right along, we get into our solving. So keep in mind when you're solving, this is going to be 7 plus 13, so 20. Do the opposite. This would be -77 divided by -11. Just make sure you put the answer part, the part that stands alone. The part that's not with the variable would go into your calculator first when you're doing this, and that is +7. When I get to two-steps or multi-step equations, sometimes I'm going to have to distribute. 8b minus 80 equals 48. So to solve this, I'll start with the 48. 48 plus 80 I'll get that answer, 128, divided by 8, and then I might need to plug that in my calculator, 128 divided by 8, oops, not plus, delete that part off of there, and 16. So B is 16, find the correct answer. Got another one where I have to distribute, watch out for signs. This is negative 4V minus 12 equals negative 56. So I'll start with the negative 56, I'll add 12, I'll get that answer. That's negative 44, and then I'll divide by negative 4, gives me positive 11. Find my solution. You don't have to show all that work. You don't have to worry too much about that. Just, you can use your calculator to help you through. The key is that you know how to do it. Sometimes multi-step equations, which is the next one, aren't even that multi-step. It just means that I'm going to have more simplifying maybe involved. So in this case, I have 12m equals 0. So it's 0 divided by 12. I had to simplify first. That ends up being 0. Some of them are going to be easier than others. Just take your time and work your way through. Here's a more complicated one. So I'll have to distribute. I have 8p plus 16 equals 16 plus 8p. Wait a second, it's the exact same on both sides. When I start to cancel everything out, I'll get 0 equals 0. That's a scenario where it's all reals. If I get something that will never be true, remember that's an option for no solution. So watch out for those special cases. Now this one is 26 minus v equals 24v minus 24. Distribute. I'm going to add the v on both sides, so 26 equals 25v minus 24. Then I can start solving just like normal. And so I would do 26 plus 24, get equals, that's 50, and then divide by 25, that's 2. So my final answer on that one is 2. Do your work however you need to do your work. Absolute value equations are up next. Just keep in mind absolute value means you have double the answers. 7x could be positive 42, 7x could be negative 42, because no matter what's inside of here, if it's positive it comes out positive, if it's negative it comes out positive. So whatever it could be the positive answer, it could be the negative answer. So in this case x is positive 6 or x is negative 6. Be aware though, because sometimes we think when we see an absolute value, if I find one answer, it's always going to be that and the opposite, and it doesn't work that way. It depends on how you solve. So in the problem that we did yesterday, it was 1 and 1/4 that were the answers. So in this, sometimes when I have extra steps, I have to make sure I get rid of everything around there. I'm going to divide that 3 out. I get absolute a plus 9 equals 10. So that means a plus 9 could be positive 10, a plus 9 could be negative 10. So I'll solve just like I normally do, 1 and negative 19. This is a sample or a scenario where it's not the exact opposite. So I can't just assume it's going to be 4 or negative 4, because those are the ones that are the exact opposite. Sometimes it's going to be two totally different numbers. All right, so that's the oldest stuff, and I know that's the stuff you've probably seen the most. So solving equations and simplifying. Some of you are great at it, some of you struggle a little bit with it. Just make sure you ask if you have questions. We're going to finish off with our last section. Plotting points, not too bad. Plot the points, that means write 3 down 2, so that's B. Quadrants, we talked about this yesterday, how the quadrants lay. So if it's a positive point, it must be in the first quadrant. When I'm finding coordinates, keep in mind it's left and right first and then up and down. So if I don't move left or right at all, that means I start with a 0, up 2. So B is the option for number 5. Moving right along, we're finishing strong here. Got 2 left. Don't forget how these work. This is just function notation. That means I plug in negative 6 for n. So this is 3 times negative 6 minus 5, or negative 18 minus 5, negative 23. If I have a negative and I'm squaring it, make sure that you put your negative in parentheses before you plug it in your calculator, but this means I take n and replace it with -5. That's -5 times -5, 25 minus 1, or 24. Last up, we have our domain and range, so we're going to work through a few problems like that. Function, not a function. Running through the odds again. When I have things like this, where I have breaks in it, don't worry. I still have the furthest left point is -4. The furthest right point is +5. It's open at -4, closed at +5. The lowest is 2. And as long as something is closed, it includes 2. The highest is 3. And again, because there's that solid line there, even though those have opens on the end, there's that solid line there, so it is included 3. Is this a function? It is, yes, because at no point does it cross twice. It looks like it does, but this is an open circle and a closed circle, so it's not going to. Don't forget that when you have points, we just list them. So my domain is just going to be a set of numbers. It's -3, 1, 4, and 5. And then my range is -4, 0, 1, and 5. Because at one point I have 2 points stacked on top of each other, this is not a function. My domain on this one, -4 to +4, including -3 to +5, including, not a function because it fails the vertical line test. Almost done. Domain on this one, furthest left is 1, not including open circle, to infinity. Remember how those arrows work? But my range goes from -infinity to +infinity. Fails the vertical line test, so no. My domain, -infinity to +infinity. Arrows on each side. But my range, however, is a little tricky because it looks like this is the high point, but this arrow is continuing to rise slowly, and eventually it's going to go higher than that. So my high point is +infinity on that, but my low point is 0. And yes, this is a function. It passes the vertical line test. Last problem, my domain goes from -2, that is not including, to infinity because I have an arrow. It goes from -2 to infinity for the range as well, low point -2, and function, yes it is. If at any point you need to back up, pause, slow down, rewatch, feel free to do it, but that's the rest of that review. If you see it on this review, you can see it on your final. Please fill this in, get your answers, make notes, write comments, do whatever you need so that you can do well on your final tomorrow. Hope you have a great day, and see you soon.